can't do this.
Well, and this personal relationship we have found, Jeremy Peters, is one-sided. I mean, the Saudis get whatever the Saudis want to get. All they have to do is flash a picture of Donald Trump up on a building when he comes to visit. And, you know, MBS is nice to Jared Kushner, and they basically get free reign. Bob Corker yesterday talking about how arrogant the Saudis are, how arrogant their leadership is towards elected members of Congress. There's a great way to fix that, isn't there? Defund the Saudis. They've got the checkbook. Donald Trump can't sell them weapons unless the Congress says he can sell them weapons.
Right, and again, this is another test of leadership for a president who has time and time again aligned himself with leaders across the country who do not represent, do not care for the moral values that America has long projected to the world, from the Philippines to Russia to Saudi Arabia. Look at the types of people that President Trump has embraced, and this, I'd like to say that I'm surprised by this, but given his history here, no, not at all. I think I spoke with a lot of people yesterday. You don't really have to look very far in Washington to find people who do business with the Saudis here. And there's this real sense
Jennifer
of
called my
how
phone.
small this was. Like how weak, what the weakness it projects to go after an enemy, a journalist, and have him killed in this grotesque way, like it's an episode of The Americans or something. But it's really struck a nerve here in Washington. And I even heard one person who does business with the Saudis say yesterday, the next time I may just donate their next check to a charity because it's so disgusting and beyond the pale what's happened here.
Well, Andrew Ross Sorkin said he wasn't going to be going to a Riyadh conference. It's a very good move. Other American reporters should do that. It's interesting. I got a call from somebody who grew up in Washington, D.C., is as entrenched in Washington, D.C. As anybody, and it was sort of like what David Ignatius was saying about the Russians in the column last week, talking about how Bush League Putin's moves have been, that while tragic, they were so easily picked up by other intel services, and it makes them look like fools. Mika, yesterday I had somebody who was, raised in the diplomatic corps, knows Washington as well or better than anybody else, and about 1 o'clock he calls me and said, Joe, what am I missing? I said, what do you mean, what are you missing? He goes, I've been here for over 5 decades. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. There has to be another layer to this story. How could anybody be so stupid, so Bush League to do this, and think they could get away with it? Well, you know how they get away with it, Mika? They have a guy, we have a president, who doesn't give a damn about what's in the best interest of this country and our values. He cares about the bottom line. It's very interesting. Jeremy talked about 3 countries where we've turned the other way on American values and diplomatic norms. He brought up the Philippines, Russia, Saudi Arabia. Guess what? There's a Trump Tower in Manila that Donald Trump and Ivanka always bragged about. I think Ivanka went over there. There are pictures all over the Philippines, Manila. So that explains the Philippines. Nothing else would. Russia, you've got both of the boys saying they get most of their money or a lot of their money from Russia. Donald Trump sending Michael Cohen over to try to start a Trump Tower in Russia. It's been an obsession with Donald Trump. Getting Russian money has been an obsession with Donald Trump since the 1980s when he was suckered into shaking the hands of a Mikhail Gorbachev impersonator. I mean, that's how desperate he has been, how sad and pathetic. What a loser he has been as it pertains to the Russians. He's made a fool of himself time and time again. And now Saudi Arabia, bragging in 2015 to everybody wearing those caps that Kanye West's wearing now, that he makes $40-50 million from the Saudis. He loves the Saudis. Of course. It's all about money. And it's not about American money. It's not about American jobs. It's not about helping out Heartland America, helping them pay their bills, having enough money to send their kids to college. It's about Donald Trump. and his billionaire family and how much money they can siphon from other countries. And so he's willing to let a Washington Post journalist get killed and hacked up because he wants to make more money personally from the Saudis.
And Joe, the line that stays
Donald
with
Trump's
me.
America.
Yeah, the line that stays with me is he was an American citizen, was he? I mean, racist, isolationist, cruel, inhumane, un-American, all in one dog whistle. It's incredible where we've come here with this president. Still ahead on Morning Joe, President Trump suggests Devin Nunes should join the ranks of American heroes to be honored with the Medal of Freedom. Yes,
good job.
That guy, Devin Nunes.
Oh,
just
good God.
No, it's crazy. Maybe Kanye, too. That honor is bestowed on those who made contributions, just a reminder, to the security of national interests of the United States.
I would not trust that guy operating my blender in my kitchen. This guy is, this buffoon has done more to try to expose how the FBI and the Justice Department do their jobs.
Yeah.
And with them begging him not to. And Donald Trump wants to reward somebody who is undermining America's intel communities. Way to go, Don.
Yeah, as we mentioned, the midterms at the top of the show, there's new polling to pour over just over 3 weeks out from Election Day, including one Democratic senator holding firm in a state that Donald Trump won in 2016. We'll get straight to that. But first, let's go to Bill Cairns with a check on the aftermath from Hurricane Michael. Bill?
Mika, it was just as bad as we feared it was going to be once daylight came up yesterday. The aerial pictures from the ground in Mexico Beach, it just looks like a giant tornado went through. Everything is just a complete mess and disaster through the region. Like 75% of the homes are probably going to be uninhabitable. It's going to just, hopefully they can rebuild this small town of about 1,200 people. Heartbreaking to see what they're going to go home to, or at least explore once it's safe to do so. And we continued to watch the storm yesterday. It brought about a foot of rain in North Carolina. 500,000 people lost power. It poured rain throughout the Delmarva region last night, and we still are dealing with heavy rain, now exiting New York City and heading out here onto Cape Cod in southern New England. So that'll be the end of Michael, and that name will be retired, and we'll never have another Hurricane Michael again. Temperatures behind the storm are crashing into the 40s, so it's a quick, humid forecast for yesterday, and then the cool fall air is blowing into the northeast today. Be prepared. It's jacket tonight. And then this weekend, we deal with a heavy rain event in the middle of the country, and at the same time, a snowstorm coming down for Wyoming. Look at Sunday's forecast. Denver, 27 degrees, 4 inches of snow is forecasted, and they have a home football game. So you'll see pictures of that this weekend. And apologies to Dallas-Fort Worth into areas of Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Sunday looks kind of rainy for you also. Eastern Seaboard looking pretty decent for much of the upcoming weekend. But all our thoughts, of course, are down there in the panhandle of Florida. Those people are just, in the grips of just incredible devastation from Hurricane Michael. Washington, D.C., we leave you with a drying forecast. Fall air is moving in. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Shine your light, know your worth. I ain't named you star by accident.
Let's go.
Critics everywhere are raving about the hate you give. The Washington Post calls it powerful, timely, and deeply moving. It's a fierce crowd pleaser, one of the best films of the year.
I need to speak for him.
And a galvanizing force for change. Forbes raves The Hate You Give is an Oscar-winning masterpiece.
My name means light, and that's...
Then let me know if it goes off.
Anyway, same-day delivery ends October 31st. Hurry into one of our 6 Cleveland area stores.
All right, let's dig deeper into the New York Times reporting that we mentioned at the top of the show on House Republicans narrowing their sights in hopes of keeping an even one-seat majority, and have begun to abandon GOP candidates, including incumbents who have fallen substantially behind in once competitive races. The report says a memo from the Republican Super PAC Congressional Leadership Fund circulated this week stating, quote, there are 20 races within 4 points points that will determine the House majority, and CLF will keep working to win them. But the math is daunting, since Republicans hold between 60 and 70 competitive districts that are being seriously contested, and Democrats only need to flip 23 to win control. The Times writes, in a tactical retreat, Republican groups have already withdrawn some or all funding from a few embattled incumbents, mainly in suburbs where President Trump is unpopular, including Representatives Kevin Yoder of Kansas, Mike Kaufman of Colorado, and Mike Bishop of Michigan. They have abandoned more than a half a dozen seats where Republican lawmakers are not running for re-election. On Wednesday, they cut loose at the Tucson, Arizona-based seat of Representative Martha McSally, who left to run for Senate. Joining us now, national political reporter for Axios, Jonathan Swan, and national political correspondent for NBC News and MSNBC, and author of the book, The Red and the Blue, the 1990s and the Birth of Political Tribalism. Steve Kornacki, The Rage, is with us. So, Joe, a lot of great guests to talk about what's going on with the Republicans.
Well, and here we are, less than a month out, a lot of cross currents in American politics. And Steve Kornacki, it seems right now, and I do mean right now, because in a week the polls are sure to change as we move even further away from the Kavanaugh hearings. But right now it seems to be a tale of two elections. You've got the Senate races that have tightened up. Republicans have taken the lead in places like Tennessee and Texas comfortably. But then you have the House races where you had House members who didn't talk that much about Kavanaugh in competitive districts because they were trying to win suburban voters over. There, it seems like the GOP is in retreat. How can you help us sort through these two different cross currents?
Yeah, because basically what you're describing there are almost two different Americas. You're talking about, Senate terrain that is heavily tilted towards Trump states, Tennessee, Texas. Trump won Tennessee by 26. Trump won Texas by 9 points. And those have become somewhat of battleground states in the Senate side. So on the House side, this is very interesting because you're talking about, in particular, when you get to these races where Republicans are looking at their financial commitment, you are talking about these suburban, more densely populated, close to major cities types of districts. In a lot of cases, districts that voted for Hillary Clinton. I was just looking in the break here, just off the top of my head, I could run down a list of about 12 seats that look like they are in, at best, dire shape for Republicans in the House. And when you look at, the Democrats need a net gain of 23 to pick up the chamber. And just, in about 2 minutes of sitting here, looking at metro areas around the country, generally places where Clinton did well in 2016, I can get Democrats more than halfway there in about 2 minutes. Now, where it gets a little more complicated with the House is, and I think this is the key, and this is what's going to end up deciding it, it's the more hybrid districts. They have a suburban metro portion to them, but they might also have more of an ex-urban rural portion, and that's where it almost becomes a test of energy between the two sides, and it's the one thing Republicans can hope for, that did Kavanaugh somehow give them energy in that more Trump portion of the district?
Well, and Jonathan, this is something that we've been talking about since the day after Donald Trump was elected. Everybody has. That the House of Representatives was going to be vulnerable because you had 23, 24, 25 seats that Hillary Clinton won, where Republicans were still in power there. You also, of course, had the redistricting in Pennsylvania. That map's changed. A couple of other maps have changed where suburban voters are given more power. The Brett Kavanaugh hearings, they may have played well for Republicans in parts of Arizona, in Tennessee, and Texas, but in these very districts that Democrats have to win, they probably got a little wind at their back because of what happened. If you just looked at the polling of the suburban voters, the suburban women, the very people they need to win over.
Yes, and the challenge the White House has had all along is that President Trump has wanted to barnstorm across the entire country. He has people on the outside who say, Mr. President, people like Corey Lewandowski, you are the greatest campaigner the world has ever seen. Every district needs you. You need to be everywhere. Trump obviously believes that. Some of these members don't want him anywhere near their districts, and they've quietly made that known to the White House. So the tension has been between Trump's desires to be everywhere and the reality that his presence in a district can energize those people that you just described. Yes, he energizes the Republican base, but he actually energizes those suburban women, college-educated voters who are giving Democrats a huge advantage in a lot of these districts.
Yeah, let's go back, Steve Kornacki. Let's look at one state.